out only after.
theatrically
No.
released.
Yeah.
No, it was after.
Rolling away.
So we basically we connected through. We started to send each other little love notes after we had seen each other's work, because I mean, you know, there was even slightly an inherent connection between the films. You know, there's we've only discovered that later, but there is obviously you can see our sense and our interest in, you know, the mechanics of filmmaking and the technological parts, and, you know, the whole way of the process of a film, how it's being made, and about the idea of a film being very, very popular and yet at the same time touching on philosophical and complex issues, and bringing that together in a very fun and joyful mode, and you know, getting that to, I mean, bringing that to the limit. How far can you go? How can you be as experimental and as exciting at the same time as you can possibly be? It seemed something that I've never met somebody that it feels as similar as they do about it with me.
Well, you were always pushing the boundaries inside the studio system in a real way. Then sometimes you got away with it, and sometimes you had extraordinary success with it, and sometimes you didn't. And so I think that it makes perfect sense that this would be like your first European film. Do you see it that way?
Well, Bound was kind of a European film in
Yes,
a way.
very
It
much
was,
so.
it was financed by Dino, who was essentially the king of foreign sales. He sort of invented it in a way. And our sensibilities, when we had our first big date, and we were just, it was like you couldn't talk fast enough to talk about all the things you loved, and just to see you like bring out all these marbles and you put them on. Do you love this one? Do you love this one? Do you love this one? And when we were describing, trying to share and compare the things that were effective or had affected us, it was always a huge spectrum of American mainstream cinema and art house European stuff. You know, we would go to double features where you could see something like the King of Hearts and Conan the Barbarian in like the same day, and that was great.
Yeah.
And we were the way that you throw your arms around the entire breadth of cinema was something that was like we were almost like hugging each other at that.
And at that time, sorry to just add that, but I mean, considering the idea that I don't think it's really fair to say this is more European or American or even, you know, Asian, you know, because I think Asian philosophy and Asian elements are really strong in the movie.
Maybe it's global.
There is a globalness
Human.
about the film, and, you know,
Sure.
also that you could even say, you know, the main character of the movie is humanity rather
Yes.
than the individuals. It's very important that there is something for us that is represented in this friendship and love that we share. I have, of course, had my fair share of, you know, the influence of American pop culture in my personal upbringing. Obviously, that's why I feel strangely at home in this country, which is really interesting. And I know that it has been vice versa. You know, they have been really attracted towards Europe, and they've been coming to Germany to shoot actually 2 entire movies in Germany, in Berlin. They've shot V for Vendetta and Speed Racer in Babelsberg, Germany, because they also love the idea to go back to this mecca of filmmaking of the 20s. And so
And
this
where
overlaps.
they made Metropolis, like on the floor that they used to build the sets for Metropolis, you're standing on the same floor. The dust that's in that place is a part of the dust that's in our movies. You know, that kind of Epicurean atomic theory of history and art is very exciting. And I love that it is, as soon as somebody says, is this art house or is this mainstream? Is this European or is this American? You're kind of broadcasting a market-driven perspective about art. You want to reduce and categorize and separate, but art, I think, shouldn't be reduced and categorized.
I mean, in the same way that you say you've made some successful movies, you haven't made some successful movies.
Market-driven.
That's just in terms of successful at the box office. And, you know, am I going to go back and say, would I not have made Speed Racer? Absolutely not. I think that
Not a single-
that movie is a successful movie.
On my 10 best list that year.
Oh.
I'm a huge fan. And I
No,
thing.
we didn't mean that
No,
implication.
but I actually appreciate what you're saying, because you have been working inside the studio system, and the studio system applies certain constraints and demands, and for the budget that they give you, they don't necessarily give you 100% freedom, and I wondered if you felt free. In many ways, you've broken free in many different areas. Because I've never spoken to you before.
I know.
Nobody's ever spoken to you before.
It's hard. It's very hard.
We're shy.
And I love it. I love it. But it's interesting because you're meeting us all for the first time when you could have been getting to know us all along.
Yes.
just
Well,
like-
it's this is not easy to do. I mean, people come to us and they say, "Why don't you do press?" And it's just, why would you want to do press?
We
I mean,
all
why would you?
admired
Who wants
you
to
for
talk
it. Are
about
you
themselves
kidding?
endlessly?
We respected it.
Well, I don't know if that's
It's not-
true for everyone,
For me,
but
I'm delighted to be meeting you for the first time, but it's probably more.
A lot of people took it as a judgment that we had about them, which I always felt bad about, because it wasn't about the process or the people or the way that it works. It was really about our privacy and our anonymity. Anonymity gives you a way to be in the world that is really precious, that we love, and we are giving it up by doing this. I mean, within one day of doing that
the introduction to the
thing,
5-minute trailer.
every restaurant we went to, people came over, "Oh my God, I love your movies." It probably had something to do with pink hair,
Utterly recognizable.
possibly.
Yeah.
But that could be a part of a larger plan. Let's just say that maybe we will once again return to a less public lifestyle. But
It's in service of the film, presumably, right?
also in service of a sense of responsibility. The film actually suggests a responsibility that we have to each other, to trying to aid in the struggle against conventional forms of oppression. And I have for a long time felt a certain responsibility to other GLBT community members, and they have asked me to be more public in order to just try to demystify this sort of existence. I'm a gendered being just like anyone else is a gendered being, and because it's so outside people's normal experience, they tend to struggle with it. And I thought, well, if I can help make it seem less foreign or something to be afraid of, maybe that would be a good thing for this
It's so
time
much
and place.
related to, of course, to so many of the subjects and substances of the movie itself. No? I
Yes.
mean, everything that we're sitting here together, the way we're sitting together, the way we loved so much doing this work together. It's in a movie that is about interconnectedness or connectedness between human beings, it would have been very weird to have me sitting here alone. You know what I mean?
Well, let's talk about that. How did you all divvy up the responsibilities? You two have been working together for a long time as a unit, but adding a third person, you took responsibility for the music in many ways, which was gorgeous
Oh, thank you.
and
He's
fabulous.
so talented.
But talk about, you worked very closely on the script together, but what about when you were shooting?
Well, it's 4 years we've been working on the movie, and if you think of the shooting, it's only 3 months. So in the scale of making the film, the actual shooting it's a very tiny portion of the film, and we're all very heavily into prepping and designing. That's where we think a lot of actual directing occurs.
Which we all did together. On every segment, every decision-making process was actually shared in every level.
The designing of it, the designing of transitions was
Casting.
all done. Casting, we did everything together. We integrated the design, we would find a color that we thought was appropriate for a character arc, and we would put that color throughout. Or we would find a motif like bone. You know, a lot of the Predator characters have bone or teeth or things that are like a part of their world. We would figure out what rooms were eternally recurring similar spaces so that we could then just redress them like we were putting makeup on people. And we sat like through endless prosthetic meetings and tests and discussions. And then we worked with our DPs, like 2 DPs, you know. It's like that's also very radical. But they work together,
Almost
costume
like it was an
department.
animated film with separate sets and locations for each strand that had to be shot separately, almost like you're in a stop motion